The soft hum of central air conditioning, the faint scent of imported timber, and the almost reverent silence of the sales gallery for The Pinnacle, a new luxury condominium development in Atlanta, usually held a certain aura of exclusivity. It was a place designed to whisper wealth, to subtly confirm the status of those who stepped inside. Yet, for Dr. Simone Kincaid, the whispers often carried a different, more insidious message. Simone Kincaid was not just a doctor, she was a visionary. Her doctorate in urban planning from a prestigious Ivy League institution was merely a foundation. She was the principal architect and founder of Envision Atlanta, a groundbreaking firm specializing in sustainable urban revitalization and community-focused development. Her projects weren't just buildings, they were ecosystems, designed to integrate seamlessly with existing communities, fostering growth without displacement. She had received numerous accolades, including the National Green City Award 2 years prior for her innovative work in revitalizing neglected urban centers into thriving, equitable spaces. Her name, synonymous with integrity and innovation in her field, carried immense weight in boardrooms and city councils across the country. Today, she was at the Pinnacle not as a potential buyer, though she certainly could have been, but to assess a potential partnership. Vanguard Property Group, the developers behind the Pinnacle, had expressed interest in collaborating on a massive, federally funded urban renewal project in Atlanta's historic Sweet Auburn district, a project Simone had championed for years. She was there for a preliminary, highly discreet meeting, dressed for a long day of site visits. Practical, tailored trousers, a crisp white button-down, and a sophisticated yet comfortable blazer. She carried a slim, expensive leather brief containing initial schematics and a comprehensive community impact assessment. As she approached the gleaming reception desk, a man emerged from an adjacent office. He was impeccably dressed, with a sharp suit, slicked back hair, and a predatory confidence. This was Mr. Blake Harrison, the director of sales for the Pinnacle. He carried himself with an air that suggested the space, and indeed much of Atlanta, belonged to him. He surveyed Simone with a slow, deliberate gaze that went beyond professional assessment, lingering on her skin, her hair, her confident posture. "Well, well," Mr. Harrison drawled, his voice a smooth, condescending baritone that echoed slightly in the expansive, marble-clad hall. He gestured dismissively towards her. "Lost your way, ma'am? The community center is 2 blocks east. This is the Pinnacle, for our exclusive clientele." Simone paused, her hand hovering over the tablet she had been preparing to present. She looked directly at him, her gaze calm, unflinching. "I have an appointment with Mr. Wallace Thorne, the CEO," she stated, her voice even. "Dr. Simone Kincaid, Envision Atlanta." Mr. Harrison's eyebrows arched, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on his lips. He finally glanced at the tablet, where her name and the appointment details were clearly visible. A flicker of surprise, quickly masked by annoyance, crossed his features. "Dr. Kincaid for a partnership?" He let the word hang in the air, dripping with thinly veiled skepticism. He then leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially, as if sharing an uncomfortable truth. "Look, Doctor, we appreciate enthusiasm, but this is a very high-end development. Our residents expect a certain aesthetic. We've had, shall we say, issues with demographic alignment in the past. We're looking for investors who truly fit the vision, if you catch my drift. Someone who understands the nuances of our market. Someone who, frankly, doesn't look like they just left a rally for affordable housing." He chuckled, a dry, grating sound. That's when the insult, sharpened by generations of inherited prejudice, truly struck. Not just in the words, but in the casual assumption, the dismissal based purely on her race and his ingrained stereotypes. Simone felt the familiar, hot sting, a deep-seated ache that resided in the collective memory of her people. It was a sting she had known countless times in her career, from subtle snubs in boardrooms to open skepticism from investors who looked at her and saw anything but a visionary. But this time, it was different. This wasn't just a rude encounter. It was an insult hurled by a direct representative of the very corporation she was considering, investing a monumental sum of public and private funds into, a corporation that desperately needed her expertise for the Sweet Auburn project. A corporation that, in its arrogance, had failed to see its own precarious position, blinded by its ingrained prejudices and discriminatory practices. Her composure remained unwavering, a testament to years of navigating such systemic biases. She simply replied, her voice calm and even, devoid of any discernible emotion. "Mr. Harrison, is it?" Duly noted, and with a precise, almost imperceptible movement, her smart device, a custom-built piece of technology concealed discreetly within her elegant brief, silently activated. It began to record, not just audio, but geotagged data, mapping every interaction within the gallery, every subtle shift in light, every hushed conversation. This wasn't just about her personal experience. It was about the insidious, pervasive pattern of microaggressions and overt prejudice that seemed woven into the very fabric of Vanguard Property Group. Simone was escorted by a visibly uncomfortable junior associate to a waiting area, where she was kept for over 45 minutes past her scheduled appointment. Other white individuals, clearly undressed for a high-end meeting like her, were ushered through almost immediately. A concierge, a young woman named Miss Eleanor, observed Simone from afar, her eyes filled with a fleeting look of pity. But she never approached. Later, as Simone walked through a show unit, admiring the architectural details, a security guard, Mr. Barnes, suddenly appeared. "Just making sure everything's in order, ma'am." "We've had unauthorized visitors before." He lingered, his presence a clear implication that she was precisely that. Each interaction, each sidelong glance, each dismissive tone was silently logged by Simone's advanced smart brief and her inconspicuous smartwatch. She documented the precise time, the individual's name, their exact words, and their body language, meticulously building a comprehensive digital archive of Vanguard's internal culture. The Pinnacle, a jewel in Vanguard Property Group's crown, was touted as a symbol of Atlanta's progressive future. What wasn't widely known, outside of very tight, exclusive financial circles, was Vanguard's growing financial distress, masked by aggressive marketing. They had over-leveraged on several projects and were facing silent but severe cash flow issues. Lena had heard whispers, of course, during her firm's preliminary due diligence. Rumors of inflated appraisals, questionable land acquisitions, and a bloated executive structure. But seeing the systemic microaggressions firsthand, the casual disdain confirmed a deeper rot. A pervasive culture of arrogance and implicit bias permeated every level of Vanguard Property Group, masking a more sinister truth about their desperation. During her late-night research, digging deeper into Vanguard's financial woes and their patterns, Simone stumbled upon a dark, unacknowledged history. Through her network of urban planning researchers and community activists, she accessed decades of old public records and archived news articles. Vanguard Property Group had a notorious, though cleverly disguised, history of blockbusting tactics in previous decades, subtly manipulating property values in historically black neighborhoods to force residents out, then buying the land cheaply and redeveloping it for wealthier, often white, clients. More recently, they had engaged in discriminatory lending and sales practices in other cities, preventing black families from purchasing homes in newly developed areas. This systemic, racist pattern was interwoven with their business model, a silent, corrosive force. A new line of inquiry began to form in Simone's mind. The Sweet Auburn project was more than just a federal grant. It was a deeply personal mission. It was about preserving the historical integrity of a vital black community while fostering sustainable growth. She had poured years into its planning, fighting for equitable development. Now, her team uncovered a shocking twist. Vanguard Property Group was actively and aggressively trying to buy up key parcels of land in Sweet Auburn, not to support her project, but to subtly undermine it. to exploit the revitalization by displacing the long-standing residents once the area was built up, then reselling the land at exorbitant profits. This wasn't just racism in a luxury condo. It was a deep, insidious scheme to profit from the erasure of Black history and community. This was a profound betrayal, touching not just her personally, but the very soul of her work. As twilight painted the Atlanta skyline in hues of deep violet and orange, casting long shadows across the city, Simone looked out from her hotel suite. She held a small, framed photograph of her great-grandmother, a woman who had, against all odds, bought her own land in the South during the Jim Crow era, defying a system designed to deny her. Her great-grandmother's face, etched with wisdom and resilience, was a silent mentor. Simone remembered her ancestors' words, passed down through generations. "They try to make you small, child, but you are a mighty tree, rooted deep. Let them see your branches reach for the sky." This wasn't just about her personal pride, or even her firm's $4.5 billion for the Sweet Auburn project. This was about accountability. Vanguard Property Group wasn't just a real estate developer. It was a sprawling empire built on a foundation of discriminatory practices, of profiting from inequality. Her firm's involvement would not just save them from financial ruin, it would inadvertently legitimize their problematic culture, allowing them to continue their predatory practices unchallenged simply by throwing money at their problems. She knew, with chilling certainty, what she had to do. This was not just a business decision. It was a moral imperative, a fight for the very soul of her city. She picked up her phone, her fingers flying across the keypad, dialing a secure line. "Mr. Davies," she said, her voice calm but firm, addressing her chief legal counsel, a man known for his unflappable demeanor and razor-sharp legal mind. "Cancel the preliminary transfer for Vanguard Property Group and prepare the full evidentiary package immediately. We're not investing, we're exposing. Make sure every single detail, every timestamp, every name, every single recorded interaction, every document of their past discriminatory practices is in there. Include the full dossier on their predatory Sweet Auburn land acquisition efforts. And contact the Federal Anti-Discrimination Task Force, the Department of Justice, the City Council's Ethics Committee, and key investigative journalists specializing in urban inequities. This is bigger than just us. This is a systemic issue, rooted deeply in the history of this city." The hour of the 6 p.m. meeting arrived. Instead of blueprints and financial projections for the Sweet Auburn project, Simone walked into the luxurious, dimly lit boardroom on the top floor of Vanguard's Atlanta headquarters with a single, sleek projector and her tablet. Mr. Wallace Thorne, the CEO of Vanguard Property Group, a man with a booming voice and a reputation for ruthless efficiency, stood to greet her, his smile wide and expectant. Beside him sat Mr. Blake Harrison, looking noticeably paler than he had earlier, his usual smugness replaced by a nervous fidget. "Dr. Kincaid, we're so delighted to have you," Mr. Thorne boomed, his voice echoing slightly in the opulent room. "We're truly excited about the potential of the Sweet Auburn project." "I trust your brief visit to the Pinnacle was pleasant?" Mr. Harrison assures me he extended every courtesy. He sent a pointed glance at Harrison, who managed a weak, forced smile. Simone simply nodded, her expression unreadable. Then, without a word, she projected the first image onto the screen. A crisp, clear photograph of Mr. Blake Harrison's face at the sales gallery, his condescending smirk unmistakable. Below it, the precise timestamp and the transcribed quote, "Someone who, frankly, doesn't look like they just left a rally for affordable housing." Mr. Harrison, upon seeing his own image in words laid bare, blanched, a sickly pallor replacing his earlier discomfort. He visibly flinched. Simone then, in a voice that was calm and steady, devoid of any discernible emotion, narrated each subsequent incident. She displayed photos and played crisp audio clips. Miss Eleanor's hesitant pity, Mr. Barnes's lingering suspicion, and other encounters with staff members who subtly or overtly questioned her presence. She detailed the exact words, the exact time, the exact individuals involved, creating an irrefutable, digital timeline of prejudice that painted a stark picture of Vanguard's internal culture. Mr. Wallace Thorne tried to interrupt, his booming voice faltering, replaced by a growing alarm. Dr. Kincaid, I assure you, this is a grave misunderstanding. Isolated incidents. These individuals will be disciplined immediately, I promise you. We are utterly committed to diversity, to inclusion, to... He pounded a fist softly on the polished table, clearly desperate to salvage the impending $4.5 billion investment and the crucial Sweet Auburn partnership. We believe in progress! In equity! Simone held up a hand, a small, dismissive gesture that nonetheless halted him mid-sentence. Isolated incidents, Mr. Thorne? I assure you, my firm's due diligence goes far beyond mere financials. It extends to the very culture of a company, its moral fabric. I've discovered dozens of similar reports, some dating back decades, systematically dismissed and ignored. These reports, some hidden in archived lawsuits, others surfacing via the old grander bias hashtag, paint a chilling picture. Your own internal audit reports, which I have managed to secure through legitimate means, show a disturbing surge in diversity complaints this past year, all conveniently buried, swept under the rug as employee training issues. And, interestingly, she paused, her voice dropping to a near whisper, yet carrying immense weight that filled the sudden, suffocating silence of the room. I also found evidence of your aggressive, predatory land acquisition tactics in the Sweet Auburn district itself, Mr. Thorne. Plans to exploit, not elevate, the community. Plans to displace, not develop equitably. You were not looking for a partner in my firm. You were looking for a financier to legitimize your insidious methods. Mr. Wallace Thorne's face went from feigned composure to utter, abject horror. His eyes, wide with terror, darted frantically between Lena and the image of the classified land acquisition documents now displayed prominently on the screen. He glanced at Mr. Blake Harrison, whose face was a mask of pure terror, sweat beading on his upper lip. Those documents, outlining their ruthless strategy to buy out long-standing residents at below-market rates, were meant to be their deepest secret, their path to untold profits. That document is highly confidential. Our Sweet Auburn plans, Mr. Thorne stammered, his booming voice reduced to a barely audible rasp, his composure completely crumbling. How did you... A testament to your operational oversight, wouldn't you say? Simone countered smoothly, her voice a calm blade cutting through his sputtering protests. I wasn't just observing casual prejudice. I was observing systemic rot. A deep-seated contempt that ran from your sales gallery to your boardroom, infecting every aspect of your operations, right down to your predatory acquisition strategies. My firm will not be investing its $4.5 billion into the Sweet Auburn project with Vanguard. And furthermore, every single piece of this evidence, along with the full, unredacted details of your discriminatory past, your unethical land acquisition tactics, and your internal audit failures, will be made public within the next hour. The relevant federal anti-discrimination task force, the Department of Justice, the City Council's Ethics Committee, and key investigative journalists who specialize in urban inequities and racial justice will receive full, unredacted copies. The pinnacle will no longer be a monument to your grandiosity, but to your decay. And your involvement in Sweet Auburn is now officially null and void. The air in the boardroom grew thick, not just with tension, but with outright suffocating panic. Before Simone had even finished speaking, Mr. Wallace Thorne's phone began to buzz incessantly, vibrating with frantic urgency. Early reports, carefully leaked by Simone's dedicated team as soon as her meeting began, were already hitting the financial wires. Vanguard Property Group's stock, already fragile from its precarious financial state and aggressive over-leveraging, began a terrifying, vertiginous plummet. The empire, so grand and unyielding in its arrogance, had been struck, and it was just the very beginning of its spectacular public downfall. The story exploded. Within days, Simone's meticulously compiled evidence, coupled with the shocking revelation of Vanguard's predatory Sweet Auburn acquisition plan and their long history of discriminatory practices, became a global sensation. The hashtag #StandWithSimone trended worldwide, dominating social media, replacing old, largely ignored whispers of inequity in urban development. Vanguard Property Group became a corporate pariah. Major financial partners, fearing severe reputational damage and the ire of an awakened public, swiftly severed ties, pulling out of multi-million-dollar contracts for projects across the country. Construction halted on several key Vanguard developments. Legal teams from housing rights organizations and civil liberties groups flooded the courts with new class action lawsuits against the company, unearthing years of suppressed complaints about racial bias in sales, tenant selection, and community relations. The $4.5 billion investment Simone withheld wasn't just lost to Vanguard. It was a devastating symbol of the market's complete and utter rejection of Vanguard's unethical practices, a profound repudiation of their culture of contempt. The Pinnacle, once touted as a symbol of Atlanta's progressive future, now stood as a monument to corporate hubris and moral bankruptcy, its once gleaming facade seeming to reflect the widespread public disdain and anger. The empire, so grand and unyielding in its arrogance, was brought to its knees with a swiftness that stunned the entire real estate industry. Mr. Wallace Thorne, the CEO who had presided over its precipitous decline, was forced to resign in disgrace, his career and reputation shattered beyond repair. Mr. Blake Harrison, the arrogant sales director, was swiftly terminated, his name synonymous with the public downfall, unable to find work anywhere in the industry. But Simone's victory was more than just the satisfying downfall of a corrupt corporation. It sparked a broader, more significant movement. City councils across the nation, terrified of a similar fate and under immense public pressure, rushed to implement rigorous diversity audits for developers, new anti-discrimination clauses in urban development contracts, and ethical sourcing policies for land acquisition. The real estate industry, for the first time in years, was forced to confront its deep-seated biases and its often unseen prejudices, initiating a long-overdue reckoning with its past. A new benchmark for corporate responsibility and equitable urban development had been powerfully set. Back in her firm's sleek headquarters, in a building that stood tall and proud in a revitalized part of Atlanta, Dr. Simone Kincaid resumed her work. The immediate dust had settled, the sensational headlines had largely faded from the front pages, but the profound impact of her stand resonated deeply and continuously. She wasn't seeking personal revenge in the traditional sense. She was seeking systemic change, a ripple effect that went far beyond a single development. Her firm, Envision Atlanta, became even more renowned, not just for its unparalleled architectural and planning acumen, but for its unyielding ethical stance, attracting top talent and new, socially conscious investors from around the globe who were eager to partner with a company that prioritized integrity and community. She began speaking at high-profile forums and global conferences, not about the takedown itself, but about the imperative of integrity in business, about recognizing unseen value in every individual and every community, and about the quiet, often underestimated power of principled action when faced with injustice. Her great-grandmother's wisdom, instilled in her from childhood, now more than ever, continued to guide her path, a timeless beacon in the ongoing fight for equity. Dr. Simone Kincaid didn't need to shout to be heard. Her actions, rooted deeply in principle and executed with unwavering precision, roared louder than any words. She showed an entire empire built on the false premise of superiority, that being underestimated, being dismissed as empty, could be the very source of their undoing, the precise lever that could topple their decaying structure. Her revenge wasn't simply about money or retribution. It was about exposing the hollow core of prejudice and demanding true ethical value from those who claim to build the future. It was a powerful reminder that the most profound change often begins with an individual's courageous stand against injustice, a stand that echoes through generations. The question isn't for those who judge. It's for all of us. When you are underestimated, when they think you are empty, when the world attempts to diminish your worth based on the color of your skin or the assumptions of your past, will you bow or will you stand? Your answer, your unwavering choice, could be the powerful start of the next quiet revolution, a force that reshapes not just buildings, but societies.